Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Trig podcast of Joy and GOZO TV on this beautiful Saturday. Good morning. How are you, my dear friend? Today is Saturday, March 21st. How is the coronavirus hitting you? Let's dance. Let's dance. Oh, man. What a great time to be alive. You're like, what is wrong with this man? Pray for my wife, right? Man, I really am excited about what's happening these days. I don't mean being afraid. I don't mean being unemployed. If you're losing money, if you're concerned about your family, I don't mean if you're stressed because you're having to work overtime or maybe you're not working at all. So I don't mean to say that I'm excited about people suffering, but I am excited about the opportunities. You know, I am a creative, and like many of you, I see things as a glass half full kind of person. That's always been in me. And so right now, that's what's still there. And I want to give you some tips on how you can do the same. But first, I want to just say welcome. Make sure that you leave me a comment below. Say hello. Share this with your friends. Leave me a comment. Say hola, how are you? I'm going to be doing some stuff in Spanish later tonight. I'm going to be leading worship tonight and as well as tomorrow evening and probably in the morning as well, obviously tomorrow being Sunday. And just want to give you, or just to be a voice of hope and reason in your life. If perhaps you are kind of feeling low, I don't know exactly where you might be right now. You know, it kind of comes and goes, right? You might be feeling excited. You might be in the gutter. You might be kind of just normal, watching things, doing the best that you can. I think we all are. We're all doing the best that we can. No one is getting this perfect. It's not about getting it right. It's about being real, being honest, and about doing the best that we can. But I do encourage you, share this with your friends. Send a few of your friends a text or a message on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're watching me, Periscope. Thank you for being here, Twitch. And let me give you some tips on why I'm so excited. Number one is because we are praying a lot more. We're praying a lot more. So if you are a person of faith, or maybe you're kind of more on the fence, it's been obvious to me that people are more open to God and to the church and to people that will encourage them. Yesterday, I had a few people just call me out of the blue, just saying, "Hey, Trig, can you pray for me? Or can you give me some advice on what to do with this or that situation?" I have my mechanic even that I've been working with on some things with my car, and I sent him a text just sending him a prayer. And I didn't really even know if he was going to acknowledge it or say thank you, but he was so appreciative of the verse that I sent him. I also have a prayer chain with my church through text. And so every morning, if you're maybe a part of my church, you know that you're getting a text in English and Spanish. And I'm telling you, people are just giving it hearts and thumbs up and thank yous. And people are feeling so grateful right now for spiritual input, prayers, verses. I also have an email list that I send out every week. Right now, I'm sending it out more often with the same kind of content. I also put together just this morning, actually just finished a resource for kids that are at home and for their moms and their parents that may want to use some sort of tool to, quote, entertain their kids, but more than that, to bring them peace and comfort, to maybe get them off the computer, off of Netflix, off of YouTubing, and off of gaming, and to give them some biblical content. So I made that resource this morning, and you can, by the way, get that at my website, davidtrig.com/free resources. It's both in Spanish and English. And the point is that people are more open to spiritual content. Now, number two is that people are also more open to not so great content. And so I think that's the other thing that we need to be praying for. As maybe you heard, I posted this on my Facebook and my website last week. Pornhub is providing free exclusive content to everyone in Italy during this crisis. And, the Bible's clear that just as good increases, guess what? So does evil increase. So we need to be praying. And it's not just the horrible things such as pornography, but it could be more acceptable things such as drinking just a little bit too much, or eating maybe just that extra donut. I just had some donuts, so it's definitely fresh to me. There are those habits or those things that we need to just be careful about. Have someone that you can be accountable to with your eating, with maybe being too introverted, perhaps being too extroverted. The Enneagram, speaking of tools, is a great resource. This is the third tool, or the third tip. This is a great chance to learn new skills. So the Enneagram, by the way, I wanted to just give you a free quick training here on what the Enneagram is. So let me actually take you to this picture that I have here. So just give me a second to find it, on what the Enneagram is all about. And I think it'll help us to kind of know what to do when crises happen. And I think that learning new skills such as the Enneagram or things like that, let me see if I can find it here really quick, will help us to better understand ourselves, will help us know our tendencies, to help us overcome some of our tendencies so that we don't give in to just being ourselves, or maybe we think that we got it right and everyone else has it wrong. There are all kinds of things that, I'm just finding it here really quick, there are all kinds of things that we may tend to overdo during times like these, or underdo during such times as we're going through. So I'm just going to do a few things here so I can get this right to the screen and you can then enjoy it. So let's see if I can do this here, see if it's taking me to the right place. Talk about the Enneagram here really quick. So let me open this, see if it opens up here. Okay, there it is. I think you see that, right? Do you see that? I think you do. Okay, yeah. So I want to just make this a little bit smaller for you so that you can see it more clearly. Okay. So this is what's called the Enneagram. Let me see if I can put my lovely face. There it is. Okay, so this is called the Enneagram. And the Enneagram is just a great way to understand how you might be managing the situations right now, or the kind of this whole coronavirus thing, or maybe how someone in your family or a friend or whatever is managing this crisis. Now, here are the 9 personality types. And this is different than DISC or Myers-Briggs or Strengths Finders, if you've taken any of those. You might not even be into personality types. Maybe you just know if you're an introvert or extrovert, things like that. Maybe at work you took a course. But this goes deep into how we respond to stress. So number 1 is the reformer. Number 2 is the helper. Number 3 is the achiever. Number 4 is the individualist. Number 5 is the investigator. Number 6 is the loyalist. Number 7 is the enthusiast. Number 8 is the challenger. Number 9 is the peacemaker. And notice all these lines, right? I'll explain those here in a second. Notice the middle triangle there, the 3, the 6, and the 9. And then you can see also there's a gap between 4 and 5. And there's a bunch of stuff there, right? Now, let me just go through just one thing that is important on this. You can, of course, learn a ton on this. But I've been going through the Enneagram for about 10 years. And I'm a pretty well-versed person on this. And I've been teaching it, actually. I taught it at my church. I also have a small group where we go through it. It's been very helpful. So the reformer. The reformer is someone, see if you can identify with this, who is very black and white. Is someone who sees life as something to do well or to not do well. There are people that are very honest, people of integrity. There are people that really value being authentic with how they think, with who they are. And now the stress, when they're stressed. Now this is where these lines are very important. They go to individualists, to that 4. See that line? It says 1, and then that green/purple line that goes down to the individualist. So when the 1 is under stress, they tend to go to the individualist, basically where they feel like they are the only ones that are getting things right. They become perfectionists. They become perhaps a bit angry at others for not doing things the way they want things to be done. When the one is healthy and feeling free and kind of loved and supported, they go to the 7. They become the enthusiast. They become a person who cheers for others, who really enjoys being with others and can laugh at life very easily. So that's number 1. So see if you can relate to being a 1. Number 2, the helper. The helper is the compassionate person on the Enneagram. Is someone who really cares for others. They're not looking out for themselves. Not that they don't want people to care for them, but they tend to be people that care for others very easily. It's just what's natural to them. It's those people who you see bringing perhaps fresh baked cookies to a neighbor that is new in the community. They're the people at church perhaps that volunteer in the office. There are people at your work that seem to really care about everyone all the time. Now, under stress, the 2 goes to also the challenger. So you see number 8. See how the 2 goes up to the 8? So when under stress, and again, this might be you tend to challenge the system. You can become aggressive, too aggressive, like an unhealthy 8. Because you don't feel loved and supported because you're under some kind of stress, such as what's going on now, you may be a bit too aggressive or perhaps even pushy. And you can even be a little bit hurting. You can hurt others with your words, even though you really don't want to. You really are a very kind, compassionate person. But under stress, you move to the 8 and you challenge others maybe a little bit too aggressively. So that's a 2. Number 3, the achiever. The achiever. This is a person who is very success-driven, very image-conscious. They want to succeed and appear to others as successful. There are people that are called sometimes the charmers, sometimes the performers, sometimes the achievers, as it says on here. Now, the 3, and they used to say that the U.S. of A. as a whole used to be a 3. Some believe that now we're more of a 6, and we'll get to that here in a second. The 3, when under stress, they move to the 9. Now, the 9, it says peacemaker, but for the 3, under stress, they move to this place of they don't really stand for for who they really are. They become fake. They can come across as plastic or as uncaring. Well, not uncaring, but as not being authentic to themselves or to others. The peacemaker, when unhealthy, can also become lazy, can become detached, can become disinterested in what others are going through or what people are going through. And so the 3 in these times might become just a bit too introverted and not show up to really help things move forward. So that's the 3. Number 4, the individualist. They call this the individualist or the artist, the creative type, a person who loves to ponder life and think about the beautiful and deeper things of life. People often joke that they're the ones with the pipe and the asfon, what's that called? The scarf that people wear. Leave me a comment if you know the word. Maybe they have a beret. They could be people that are very academic or very artistic or both. So the individualist is another beautiful person. Now, under stress, the 4, if you notice here, there are 2 lines. It goes to the helper or to the reformer. Under stress, the individualist goes to reformer. And so they become very black and white. They think that only they are the ones that truly understand how life works. Only they truly understand or are suffering like nobody else. Whereas the healthy 4 becomes a helper and becomes someone who shares their art. When under stress, the 4 goes to that woe is me kind of space. And so that's the 4. The 5, I love the 5s. I'm not a 5, but I do love the 5s. I love the 6s. I love all these types. But the 5, they call the investigator. The 5 is the one who is the analytical types. They could be very much of an engineer mind, very scientific, very intelligent. They love to research. They love to investigate, as it says here. They love to look for the data, for the numbers. They're not that they're stuck on numbers per se, but they are very much a head type, as they call it. So maybe just to go back a bit, the 2, the 3, and the 4, they call those the heart types. The 5, the 6, and the 7, now we're getting into the head types. So we're talking about people that are logical, linear. You would call them left brain, but they're very kind. But you could also see that they have a more linear and systematic approach to life. They like plans. They like to know where they're going. They don't do well with mystery or with changing things on the spot. Now, the 5, when healthy, goes to, it says here, to the 8. No, excuse me, goes to the 7. But when unhealthy, meaning under stress, such as the coronavirus, the 5 could become a challenger. They might become similar to the 2, competitive, almost argumentative. They might be under so much stress that they will rebel, that they will want to control the situation, that if anything enters their lives that is not to their liking or doesn't make sense, they might leave that system. They might rebel against it. They might say, oh, this is not what I want, and so they might take off. So the 5 is, that's what the 5 is, under stress. Now the 6, the loyalists, beautiful people again. These are people, I'm not a 6 either. You can maybe guess which one I am here. The 6 is a beautiful person. The 6 is faithful, committed. They value friendships. They value long-term friendships. They don't just show up for a day or two. They'll show up for life. They are people in relationships that are committed for, as it says in the vows, through in sickness or in health, till death do us apart. There's a lot of THs there and S's. The 6 is the person who thinks also about the worst case scenario. They can tend to be devil's advocates. They might at times come across as people who only see the bad part of things, but truly they want to be faithful and committed to, especially those that they're in relationship with. Now the 6, when healthy, goes to a 3. When unhealthy, they go to the 9. They can become a bit, actually it's the other way. When they are unhealthy, they go to the 3. In other words, they have this feeling that they have to do more than what they really want to accomplish. They feel a sense of pressure. Like, man, I need to go and impress my boss and impress my husband or do more for my kids. The 6, when under stress, they extend themselves, maybe overextend themselves beyond what they can actually do. Whereas their natural place to be is to be healthy, is to be faithful, to be loyal. The 7, oh man, I love the 7s as well. I have a lot of good 7 friends. I'm not a 7 either. But the 7 is what they call the enthusiast, or we could call him the GOZO person. Again, I'm not a 7, but I do love the 7s. They are people of joy. My mom, if you know my mom, she's a 7. They're people of just a genuine sense of laughter, of looking at the positive, looking at as I said at the beginning of this show, at the glass as half full. They're not looking at the negative. They're very different than the 6. That's why they sometimes are a good match to each other. The 6 and the 7 and the 8 are good matches, because the 7s tend to not dwell on all the bad news. They're not, especially right now, they're not looking at all the horrible stuff and the empty shelves and how the thing is spreading, and whereas the 5 might be looking at all the data and again, I'm not saying this is bad or good. This is just how that person thinks. They're very much into sharing with you all the latest data and why we have to flatten the curve and why we have to have 6 feet of separation. They're very concerned with the details. The 7 is the opposite. They want to have fun. It's that song, girls just wanna have fun. So the 7 is the enthusiast. Now, under stress, the 7 moves to 5. They become suspicious. They're out there looking for the real reason behind your actions. They might be wondering, well, what is really going on in this situation? You must have an agenda. can become an unhealthy 5 that becomes almost superstitious, almost concerned about conspiracy theories. Most conspiracy theorists would be unhealthy 7s, or maybe just very healthy 5s who always are thinking, well, what else is really going on behind the scenes? So that's the 7 right now. So if you are a 7 and you're like, I got this text just recently of this person who probably is a 7 who says that there's a whole conspiracy behind this to bring down Trump. So if you are drawn to that kind of stuff, you might be a 7 and you might be under stress right now. Number 8, the challenger. I love the 8s. I think they're my favorite. The 8 and the 9s, I would say, are my favorites. I love the 8s and the 9s. The 8s are challengers. They are what they call the natural born leaders. They are people who naturally want to help others, and people follow them because they have a very genuine heart to help those in need. They are the advocates for the least of these. They are the ones who care for those that are maybe experiencing injustice. You will see 8s involved in a ton of social things. They will be the ones who want everyone to get something because you're missing out, and you need to learn this so that you can fix your life and improve your life. Now, the 8s, when under stress, they go to the 2. They move to the 2. Actually, they move to the 5 as well. So let me take first the 5. Under stress, they move to the 5. Similar to the 7, they become suspicious. They go overboard with wanting to know way too much and perhaps get panicky. They can become overwhelmed with stress. They can become overwhelmed with how many things are out of control right now. They become an unhealthy 5, where the healthy 5 likes to think things through and have a plan. The 8, when under stress, might be going overboard right now with giving everyone little wipies, or making sure everyone is doing the whole hand freshener, hand sanitizer stuff. They might even have 10 or 12 of those bottles just in their car alone, because under stress, the 8 tends to go to the 5 and can tend to overdo the preparedness. And a lot of it is because they feel out of control. The 8 is known also as a person who likes to be in control. We all, of course, want to be in control, but the 8 tends to naturally want to go to that space. The 9, also my favorite types. I have a daughter who is a 9. She is a lovely girl, and the peacemakers are probably my favorite of the whole gram here. This is the other gram, not the Instagram, but the Enneagram. Now, if you notice a peacemaker, before I get into it, they're at the top of the whole circle here. And the reason is because many believe that the 8, the 9, and the 1, if you notice, they're all in the orange numbers, are part of what's called the gut triad, meaning they respond to things based on, not on logic, not that they're not logical, not on heart, but on gut. The 2, the 3, and the 4, if you notice, they're kind of more, purplish, red. They respond things more on heart. Not that they don't have a head or gut, but that's just their instinct, is to think with their hearts, to lead with their hearts. The 5, the 6, and the 7 tend to be the head types, I call them. And they primarily process life and lead with their logic, with their minds. Now, one more thing before I get to the 9. The 8, 9, and 1s, they tend to call them, I believe, the anger triad. Their natural, maybe vice or sin or weakness or crisis point is anger. The 2, 3, and the 4 is shame. And so they deal with a deep sense of not being worthy. And the 5, the 6, and the 7, I'm forgetting right now, fear, yes. So for them, anger, shame, and fear. The 5, the 6, and the 7 tend to have this innate feeling within that there's something to be afraid of. So now let's finish with the 9. The 9, at the top of the Enneagram, is the peacemaker. As I said, I have a daughter who's a 9, and I love her dearly. I actually have family members all in the 8, 9, and 1. I'll let you decide who you think that is, and most of all, who you think you are. But the 9 is a peacemaker, is a person who loves harmony. They are at the top of the Enneagram because they really see the whole picture. They can see how the 3 wants to achieve. They can see how the 6 wants to be faithful. They can see why the 5 wants to think things through. And they are not out to get their way, but to bring harmony, to bring peace to everyone, to have everyone get along, to have everyone share their input, and to find consensus, synchronicity, harmony, and synergy, and all those beautiful words that 9s have. Now, the 9, when under stress, they move to 6. In other words, they may linger and become too loyal. They might become clingy. They might become a bit, as they call it, codependent, where under stress they become paralyzed. They don't want to, or they have a harder time acting on their gifts, acting on their knowledge, acting on what their gut is saying. Again, the 8, 9, and 1 are the gut triad. But under stress, such as the coronavirus, you might see them in their PJs just a bit too long. Again, we're all in our PJs these days, but they might be types that right now they are kind of receding and hiding, where you perhaps want them to be more like a 3 and to do and accomplish more things. So that is the 10-minute version of the Enneagram. And I would love to know if you can identify who you are. If you could say, hey, here's who I think you are, and to leave it in the comments below. But I tell you all this because I think that learning about tools such as the Enneagram, or really other personality types, are good too. I especially like the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram, but probably my favorite is this one. The reason why it's important to know thyself, as Aristotle said, or Socrates, one of those guys, I'm not a 5, can you tell, is because right now we can judge other people for not being like us. Let's say you're a 1. And you're very much of a right and wrong person, meaning don't touch that. Make sure that you don't leave the house. Make sure you're back by 5 p.m. What exactly did my boss say? And so for that person, if you're a 1, that's very important. And they're processing life right now through that lens. But let's say you're a 7 and you're the ones that are at spring break right now. And all those kids and all those millennials and all those irresponsible types, I'm not whatever that word is. I'm not acknowledging, but I'm not excusing that behavior. My point is that if they're a 7 type, the way they see life. Hello, Mac Joe. The way they see life right now. Thank you for being here on Twitch. Welcome, welcome. The way they may see life. Put your comment there. The way they see life right now. Speaking of the 7s, they might be saying, "Well, what's the big deal?" It's not that they don't have knowledge. It's not that they don't see the news. It's just that their Enneagram type is more of a 7, more of an enthusiast. Now, speaking of Twitch and donuts here, most people on Twitch, my guess is they're 5s, meaning they're very much the investigators, the linear types. So perhaps you, MacJoe82, I don't know, but you might be someone who is thinking through all the details right now, all the data. I have a good friend, his name is Sean, and every post on his Instagram stories is not inspirational verses or spiritual verses, or it's going to be okay. It's all data. It's all 6 feet, how to measure 6 feet, how to have the right mask or the right gloves, it's all facts and figures. And for someone like me, it is panicky, but for someone like him, it's being prepared. And again, you have to know kind of your type. A lot of Twitchers, I believe, also are 4s because they're more creative and certainly artistic, and very much wanting to leave a stamp in the world. So I would assume, this is just an observation, that most Twitchers and maybe YouTubers are either 4 and 5. The way you know your type is you go to this thing that you see here on the screen, the Enneagram, you type it into Google, and you simply take a test. There are free tests, there are paid tests, there are all kinds of tests online. But I would say the best way is to talk to someone who knows you, that maybe can read up on the Enneagram, just the 2-minute version online. For example, my daughter, she sends a link. I think you can go to enneagraminstitute.com, enneagraminstitute.com, and I believe that's a free test. And one of our daughters, she sends all her friends to that website, and they take a a 5-minute test. And then she, because she's been learning from me, she's been observing and reading up on all my books. She kind of like gives them her advice on what she thinks they may be. So I think that combination of you reading up on it yourself, but then having someone who maybe knows a little bit more, having them quote, read you or advise or just observe you, that might be even a better way to figure it out. So, but EnneagramInstitute.com. Let me see if I can leave that website on here so that you can have that. Let me see here. Let me change this text here and put instead the website here, Enneagram Institute.com. You can go there, and I believe it's a free test. By the way, I don't get paid for any of this. I'm just a coach on this, but this is not some paid service I'm offering or anything. I'm just offering my free advice so that you can learn more about yourself, especially right now, how people or you or your mom or your friends are acting under stress. Especially that part is very interesting right now. So that is the Enneagram, and that's how we can learn to calm ourselves down. So for example, for me, let's say I was a 1. I'm not a 1. Let's say I was a 1, meaning a reformer under stress goes to the individualist, meaning they become very, very much, let's call it a micromanager or a perfectionist, okay, when under stress. So right now, let's say if I was a 1 and I was trying to control other people, wanting to make sure that everyone does things my way, the way that you can grow is by first being aware, which is the hardest thing for all of us as humans, to kind of like to be self-aware, as they call it, right? So that would be the first thing. And I would say the second thing is to ask a friend to say, am I off on this? Here's why I'm reading this whole virus thing right now. Everyone's messing up. No one's listening to the news. Everyone is disobeying. They need to do what is right. You might want to ask someone and say, do you think I have a good read on this? Or am I seeing it through my type? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is then to, once you acknowledge and you realize that you're probably being too hard on yourself and others, is to move towards a 7, meaning your place of health, your happy place, as I call it. And again, I'm just following the arrows here. The 1 goes to 4 and 7. So you may, if you're finding yourself getting too uptight with other people, move to the 7. What does that mean? It's doing the things that bring you joy. That might be working out, working with flowers, hanging out with your family, going out for a drive. I mean, we can still drive around, I think. I don't know. Doing things, especially with other people, that bring you joy. Instead of tightening down, which is what the 1 tends to do during stress, try to move towards a 7 and do things that bring you fun. Even though in your body and your mind, you're feeling the opposite. You're feeling like being a little too uptight with people. Move towards a 7. Come up with an idea to play board games with your family. Come up, let's say if you're a younger person and you're online all the time, maybe you want to go skateboarding with your friends. I think that's allowed. I don't know. Check with your local, mayor. But the point is, do things for yourself or with others that bring you joy. Okay, so that's how you would use this personality Enneagram to manage all of this virus stuff right now that we're all going through. So I think that can be very helpful. Well, let me finish. I have one more tip that I want to give you in terms of why I'm so excited. So if you are tuning in late, the reason, let's see what's going on here. I want to move the screen and it's not letting me. Primary, secondary, current application. There it is. Okay. I don't know why it wasn't letting me do that. Okay. But so for example, so for me, so let me tell you, I'm a 3. So perhaps you have known me, or I don't know. I'm just telling you. Now, the thing for me that I tend to do is, as a 3, if I'm not getting the results, or if I'm not achieving, if I'm not winning at life, if I'm not the best, then I can tend to get down and almost, like it says here, become a 9, meaning too disconnected from myself. And so what I'm doing right now, that's why I'm here, because under stress, I could tend to disconnect, But if I'm healthy, I become a 6, which is someone who is faithful, not only to God or to myself, but to people, to my cause, to what I believe in, which is to share. And so that's another way that you can learn, and the Enneagram can assist you. Now, the last tip that I wanted to give you on why I'm so excited is because of collaboration. So if you're tuning in late, I came up with 4 reasons why I'm so pumped right now. Again, this is not because I'm thankful that we're scared, or I'm thankful that people have no jobs, or I'm thankful that businesses are losing money. Of course, I'm not thankful nor glad for those things. But just, I am a 3. I do tend to see things through a positive lens, a lens of GOZO, a lens of how things can improve. So I wanted to give you 4 tips. The first one was because goodness and prayer and spiritual faith can increase. Number 2 is because we have to be more aware of the dangers right now. And so it can help you kind of be more aware. Number 3 is because there are new tools that we can be aware of, like the Enneagram. And the last tip is we can collaborate. So as you know, I also own a media company called Trig Media, and I teach how to do all this that I'm doing here, especially podcasting, video courses, content creation. I work with authors, nutritionists, spiritual leaders, coaches, and it's been an amazing experience. And right now, you can imagine it's been an increase in people wanting to receive, especially content that is positive and that is encouraging. People are more open. And so what I am doing this weekend, today, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, these next 2-3 days, is I put out an invitation, and I want to invite you to share your 3 best tips with me, and then I'll put it together with my team. It's my daughter and I who work together on Trig Media, and we're going to collaborate or to compile all of the input and put it in a form of a podcast, or maybe 2 or 3 if it's a lot of entries, or a video series on YouTube that is produced by us, and that will be a collaboration or a cooperative, a co-op of content creators that have a lot of knowledge. Maybe they don't have the energy right now, or maybe the tech to do much. If anything, we may all feel isolated right now, but because we are in need right now, and people do need good content, I want to be that portal or that network to receive your content, and then we're going to produce it in amazing ways, giving you credit, pointing people towards your website, towards your products, towards your services. If you are a pastor or a musician, or if you're a coach, we will give you credit and, of course, point people to all your links. But the best thing is that we'll be able to help people collaboratively. And instead of just you doing it by yourself or me doing it alone, we are going to come together. And so by tomorrow, Sunday, the 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific, I'm here in the LA area, Long Beach, California. I want to invite you. I'm going to put this here. Let me retype this. I want to invite you to email me, or to Twitch me or Facebook me, or whatever you are doing. Leave me a comment wherever you're watching this right now or after the fact. If you're on Facebook, you can leave me a comment. If you're on YouTube, you know all the routines. But you can just email me if you'd like to. That email, basically your answers to 3 questions. And you can go to my Facebook page to actually see them written down. My Facebook is David Trigueros Live, I believe. You can just type in my name and you'll see me. And so on there, I wrote a whole thing on the 3 questions that I want to ask you to give us your best advice on these 3 things. Basically, the 3 questions are: what are people feeling right now from your perspective? What are people needing to what was the second one? Needing to think about differently. And then the third one is, what can people do? So for example, let's say you are a health and nutrition specialist. And obviously right now we're all indoors and we might be eating too many carbs or sugar or not enough protein. So the first question is, what are people feeling these days? Well, you might say they're feeling trapped. They're feeling lazy. Second is, what do people need to avoid? And so you may want to say, well, they need to avoid inactivity, gaining weight, having their blood pressure go up. And then what can they do? And so this is where you want to provide your best input. Work out in your garage, go for a walk, try to eat more greens. So that would be an example of how you can share your knowledge as a influencer, as a coach, as a nutritionist, as a spiritual leader with GOZO TV network. And then we will do the rest and produce it and give you credit, of course, and point people to your services, website, whatever you may have. And so the kind of people that I'm inviting into this are healers. I mean, people that like things such as nutrition and coaches, people that are educators. I mean, look at the homeschooling need right now, right? I mean, doesn't everyone need some tips on how to homeschool your kids? So I invite those. I invite also people that are into fitness, as I mentioned, people that are into entrepreneurship or that have been building businesses for the last 10 years, some wins, some losses, but we need you to show us the way. And how can we rebuild our careers if our job at the local factory or at school is gone next month, next year? How can we reinvent ourselves? Artists, I think, are so important. You have written a song, you have drawn something that is maybe the hope amidst the darkness, a song that brings joy amidst the sadness. I would love for you to send me just you playing on the guitar or the piano, or you singing a song, maybe just reading a poem or a rap, or I love hip hop, of course, as you know. And we will then put that on our website and on all of our social media. And as I said, give you credit for all of your work. So basically, all the creatives, you are needed. If you are a healer, a coach, you are needed. Someone who I was just talking to a friend, and she was telling me, her name is Lisa, that her life coaching business is going through the roof. People needing help with fear, anxiety, sadness, worry. And so if you are a life coach, I would love to get your 3 best tips on how to help people move through this time of fear and worry. If you are a spiritual leader, of course, I would love to have your top 3 verses of what you see God doing in this time. If you're a prophet, an evangelist, if you have a word from the Lord and you would like to share that with the audience, with the online world, I would love to have you send me your best content, your 3 best tips by tomorrow, 5 p.m. Let me put all this information on here so it's all written. Send it to me to that email by tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow. Well, I'm not going to say tomorrow is March 21st. It is March 21st. By tomorrow, March 21st, 5 p.m. Pacific. Send me. I can see the 3 report, but I'm a 4. Okay, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so yeah, you may want to go back, Mac. I did a whole thing on all 9 types. And to not bore everybody, I don't want to go through it again. But let me tell you just the basics, okay? I obviously want to help you see it. And I shouldn't say see. Most people on Twitch and on just social media, they're either 4s or 5s. They tend to be. Sometimes the 4s and the 9s can tend to be on here a lot. So yeah, let me go through that here really quick. Let me just type some of this stuff. So for all content creators, I would love to have you guys send me your best 3 tips to that email or on whatever platform you're watching me. Leave it in the comments, whatever. Email me by tomorrow at 5 so I can then compile all that information and send it out. Okay, so back to Matt Joe's question. I can see if we're, yeah, I cannot exactly right. 98%. Yeah, so the 4 is what's called the individualist. Let me see if I can put that graphic back here on the screen. I'm sure I can. There it is. So the 4. The individualists, they call them, the artistic types. Now, when you hear artistic, everyone obviously thinks dance or singing or playing an instrument. That may be very well what the individualist is. But really, it's not even about music. It's about uniqueness. The way that the 4s present in the world, show up in the world, is by having a uniqueness about them. You might be someone, I don't know you, of course, obviously, that from the beginning, since you were a young person, I don't know your age, if you're in your teens, 20s, 50s, I don't know. So assuming you're somewhere in your 20s, I don't know, you probably have seen your whole life a desire to be recognized for who you are, that you're not like everyone else, that you have a unique style about you in the way you dress, in the way that you speak or write, your art. You're 37, yeah. So definitely you've seen this now in your life, that since you were in your teens or 20s, through college, through your first 4 or 5 jobs, in marriage, relationships, you've always had a desire, usually, I shouldn't say always, usually to present as unique, as someone who is not like everyone else. It's not a thing of arrogance or pride, although that can get into the 4. The 4's deadly sin. They believe, what is it? They have a deadly vice. I forget the 4. Oh, yes, envy. So the 4 tends to struggle with envy. They struggle with depression. They struggle with comparison. Their joy will often get robbed because, or through comparison of how other people are not even as great or as unique as you may be, and yet they're getting further ahead. So the 4 and the 2 deal with envy, comparison, with as I said, depression more than anxiety. The 4 it tends to be more on the depressed side of life. And so that's why we have a lot of gamers, as I said, or people online that are 4s or 9s, because that's where they find their connection. There's no audience, there's no one to impress, and they can be themselves. Now, as I said, the 4 under stress right now, if you see the lines there, it goes to the 1 and the 2. So the 2, the 4 under stress, they go to the 2. They become almost like too giving, if that's possible. They can lose themselves in not bringing their uniqueness. They feel like, well, what's the point? I'm going to just do whatever everyone else wants me to do. Or I'm going to retreat into my little corner of the world, online or in my room or in my thoughts mostly, and not show up as a unique person that I am because no one seems to value me. Where the 4 is at its strength and in its power is when they're a 1, where they use their art or their uniqueness. It could be even in clothing. I know one of my cousins is a 4, and she skates, like roller skates, like 80s style, even though she's like 25. And she also makes her own clothes and has her own boutique online. Very 4, right? Individualist, very much of wanting to present something special in the world. She also raps with her brother. They're my cousins. And so, but the 4, when under stress, they can tend to, as I said, become an unhealthy helper, envious, where under health, or when safe, that's the other word that we use, safe or stress. When feeling safe, they go to the 1. They want to change the world. I mean, you think of all of our great artists from, let's say, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of all of the like Ben Harper types. I was just watching him last night. Perhaps Dave Matthews. I don't know if he's a 4. You think of perhaps Michael Jackson was a 4, even though he seemed more like a 3 or a 7 to me. But you think of all the great artistic types and the way they show up in the world. What do they do through their art? They change the world, very much like a healthy 1. They reform how we view life. So anyway, that's the brief of it there, Mac Joe. And so if that resonates with you, and as it says here, that's your 98% of 4, then those are some of the tips. And does that resonate? Does that sound about right? Okay, I see myself. Great. Yeah, so then that means that's where you're at. And the 4, they're beautiful people. They make the world beautiful. They're the artistics. They're the artists. Some people think that I'm a 4, but as I said, I'm a 3, probably with a 4 wing, as they call it, meaning, as you can tell here on this Enneagram, these numbers, the 3 and the 4, are very close to each other. And so the reason why I know I'm not a 4 is because I'm too driven. And there are many 4s that are driven, so I don't mean to say that 4s are not driven. It's just that the 3s, I'd better try to change things exactly than give clumsy help. Exactly. Very well said. Clumsy help is the 2. Exactly. Yes, change things is the 1. Exactly right. You said it very well there. And so in terms of what I was saying with the 3, the reason why I know I'm not a 4 is because I'm just too driven. And if anything, I struggle with being too driven. And I have to like tone it back and to be more like a healthy 6 in my case, or a healthy 9. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth. I'm thinking of other types of a healthy 6 and be committed to people and to show up just to help, not to win or to advance. So, well, I think that is the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Make sure that you do share this episode with your friends, with your family. If anything, just come back here yourself, subscribe, comment, like. And if you're on YouTube, I have the same content on YouTube, but I love YouTube. I'm not a big Facebook guy, even though most of my people follow me there, only because it's so distracting. Whereas Twitch and YouTube, I think, are more focused on learning and on these kinds of conversations. So thanks, bro. Yep, absolutely. Thank you as well. And again, once again, thank you for being here. Subscribe. And I do want to, going back to my challenge here, or to my, I guess, I don't know what I'm calling this. Challenge. Email me by tomorrow at 5 to trig@davidtrig.com, or text me or message me, whatever, your 3 best answers to the questions that I put on my Facebook page. Basically, your 3 best tips to help other people. And so then I'll compile them, as I mentioned. If you didn't hear the announcement, just go back a bit on this recording. This will be here forever. These videos don't disappear. And so you can listen back. But basically, the competition or this challenge is to send us your 3 best tips. We'll compile them into a podcast or a series of podcasts, depending on the interest, and a series of videos, so that we can create content that is helping people these days and bring the best to the world. Thank you guys for being here. Comment, like, subscribe. Subscribe to GOZO TV, Trig Podcast of Joy. Go to my website, davidtrig.com, to get all of the latest amazing stuff. Let me put that in here as well. I am a 3 after all, so I got to always, put my best foot forward. You're a 3 when. And go to my website, and actually let me type in the actual, what's it called? Free resources, right? No, just resources? I don't know. It's either resources or free. I think it's free resources. Resources. So you can get my latest tool that I just wrote this week on how to help your kids be entertained through biblical content, and to find the Word of God while at home, especially for you moms or dads that want something spiritual and biblical to do with your kids, especially if they're preteens and below. I created a free resource called Biblical Kids, and you can go to davidtrig.com/free resources and download it for free. No email required, no gimmicks, just download it there for free. Thanks again. Adios.